Greetings, fellow Demon Slayers. This is Taimanin Mari here today with another Action Taimanin video. And for today's topic, we're going to take a nice look at Kirara. People have been talking about her here and there, wondering what she can do besides tank. So she is a really good damage dealer. She just doesn't have sustain. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just explain to you guys how to abuse her glacial drop and maximize its numbers because it can hit really hard. So the first thing we're going to do is just do a quick gameplay sample. I have a little bit of AP to burn, and then I'll just get right into it and share the build, and then it'll be a nice short vid. So the important thing to remember with her is to always go for your frigid zone. Like in this content it really doesn't matter, but like for sake of demonstration. And then if I were to glacial drop, you see that did like 640,000. And then we'll just beat on this guy. So the reason you frigid zone first is because one, it's basically a Kojenka because it does do a map wide slow, and two, it increases your numbers like absurdly because it's a defense down as well. Now I can't frigid zone for my life. There we go. So let me just get rid of this guy, and then we'll just drop on him. Boop, 610k. Okay. And that's pretty much it. I used this to clear bonus stage 3. I did it in just the video the other day where we were having a discussion just to get it out of the way. I didn't feel like I should do another bonus stage 3 video simply because I did so many, but we'll see if they keep adding those types of stages with the coming events rather, and hopefully we'll get different enemy types to test against besides that Iron Man douche. So let's just do this. It also works with supporters. Spica generally hits for 200 some odd K. That broke 300. The last hit did 389. So yeah, she's not really that hard of a character. You just gotta frigid zone and do what you gotta do. The drawback, okay. The drawback, unfortunately, is she just has 0 sustain. So I I'm reluctant to suggest anything but the tank build that I've already showcased inside of content like tower, but this build definitely will work in a bonus stage setting because it's hitting so hard that it's just basically one-shotting the enemies. And as long as you stick to her flowchart of frigid zone before you do any sort of engagement, you'll be fine. It's really not complicated. So, what are we doing with her? First, we're going to go take a look at her little set effect. So, there's 2 that you can use. I am running Them's Fightin' Ninjas because Glacial Drop is a ranged ability, so this will increase critical rate of ranged attacks by 7%, and it will increase critical damage of ranged attacks by 16%. Now, Kirara is a melee character. With this build, you are using Glacial Drop as your main means of DPS because it basically hits as hard as an ult. So as long as you stick to your frigid zone and then do your glacial drop, you'll be fine with this build because if you Kojenka and just drop on them, things are going to die. But just keep in mind, this only really helps her glacial drop, and I believe it affects her ult. I'll have to do more playtesting, but I think Kirara's ult deals range damage, and the reason for that is when I was playtesting her on bonus stage 3, her ultimate was only critting for 480k, I believe. And if you all remember, bonus stage 3 has a 50% range damage decrease. It gives you a penalty to all range damage. When I do her ult outside of bonus stage 3, it actually crits for 980k. So that leads me to believe her ultimate may be ranged as well. But don't take that as 100% law, but the glacial drop for sure is ranged. Now, if you don't have Them's Fightin' Ninjas or you don't want to use it, your next best option, if I can find it or remember where it is, give me a second. Here it is. making a splash. This one is also like rough because you will still need a speaker, but if you have either R, great for you because this is the basic substitute for it. It would increase damage dealt by a demon type character by 16% and increase critical rate of demon type characters by 6%. So it pretty much ignores range R melee and just simply buffs demon types. The reason I prefer to use Them's Fighting Ninjas on my Kirara is because she will be in a team with Yuki Kaze for any sort of like high-end gameplay like Tower where we have a team of 3. So with that being said, I want Yuki Kaze to benefit as well, and since Glacial Drop is really the main means of DPS and her ult is the main means of DPS anyway, this set effect works wonderfully with both of them. And Emily as well, who's my other lovely waifu that I adore. So now that we've talked about set effects, let's go look at her actual build and setup. So the first thing I want to note is Kirara has absurdly low attack stat and an absurdly low critical stat. I believe like they're among the lowest in the entire cast, if not the lowest. So, with all that being said, the damage is high enough because you will be giving yourself a lot of multipliers with this build. And as far as critical, you will be making that up with your Magatama. This will require that you have full increased critical rate on your character on all slots of the Magatama. No, there's no need for critical damage here because you'll get all the damage you need from the actual build itself. So make sure you abuse these yellow Magatama and get as much crit rate as possible. And get the rolls as high as possible. As far as the weapon, best in slot would be Rebellious because this is a critical build. I think for substitutes, what did her super rare do? Does she have one that deals critical rate? Yeah, if you don't have a rebellious weapon, you can always use the Hollow Sphere because it gives you 28% critical rate, which would help her because she has terrible critical rate. So this will be like a lower damage substitute with more consistency to your criticals. And with this, you sit roughly between 90% and 100%. I wish I could see the exact amount, but she pretty much crits so much it's easier to count the non-criticals. I'd imagine this would just bump it to 100% but give her lower overall damage. So either would work for this setup. Of course in the sub slot we are running the PvP weapon at S level 5. And we just gave her a bunch of maxed out critical Magatama here as well to give her as much critical stat as possible over here. Next we are going to look at the skill setup. So, as you all know, we are running Glacial Drop. Now, Glacial Drop is sitting here with a 2 set in green, which means that its damage will be increased by 80% whenever you do it. So, that of course is where a lot of your firepower is coming from. With green, this skill hits absurdly hard. Of course, we are running Frigid Zone. Frigid Zone, obviously, we all know what it does. It's basically a Kojenka. It does hit the full screen despite the radius that it shows. It will hit everything on screen at the time of activation. If you do proc a Frigid Zone and finish a pack, and the next pack spawns during the animation, the next pack will not be slowed or have the defense down. So keep that in mind. It does work exactly like Kojenka, it just lowers defense. And with the 2 set in green, it will increase damage by 20% while activated, further boosting the damage output of Glacial Drop. When you have a Frigid Zone up, Glacial Drop basically will be dealing 100% more with that extra 20% tacked on. Now, the final ability, I did some testing because she is basically a ranged Kirara, but Frigid Edge just doesn't keep up with Snow Leopard Sprint. The Frigid Edge on average with my setup was hitting for, I want to say 80k without Frigid Zone. Yeah, it was 80 to 90,000. And with Frigid Zone up, it was critting for about 120k. Snow Leopard Sprint without the Frigid Zone crits for about 150k. Even though it's still a melee skill, it just clearly out DPS's Frigid Edge. Has a lower cooldown on top of it. And Frigid Edge, you have to hit double dodge to activate it. So, like, she's not safe during that animation. It's a quick shot, but things can like still get up there and hit her because you can't cancel it or get out of it. So overall, Snow Leopard Sprint is safer and still deals more damage despite being melee. And with the red set as the main, it will actually give an additional attack. And it was already out DPSing Frigid Edge with the first attack, and Frigid Edge does hit twice. The first hit of this does more than both hits of this, so just keep that in mind. Snow Leopard Sprint is probably the way to go. Unless for some reason you like Frigid Edge, then you can definitely sub it in. I wouldn't sub in anything else. Snow Leopard Fist suffers from kind of the same issue as Snow Veil, where she's kind of planted in place when she's doing these abilities. So for higher end gameplay, they're just not safe. Taimanin art is always a good choice if you feel like you want a basic attack, but there's really no need because the Snow Leopard Sprint will just simply out DPS the basic attacks even with this ability. Crystal Ice requires you to get hit, so there's no reason to have that. And Blossoming Fog, again, it's just simply too slow, and it doesn't really do much with the build because it does require a 3-set. And of course, we all know launchers are bad. So, I'd say Snow Leopard, Sprint, Frigid Edge are Taimanin art if you prefer the basic attack setup. It will grant her more particles, which is nice, but she'll probably just clear a little bit slower, not running this or this. And again, make sure if you're going to run this, don't just run around in basic things. If you're playing high-end content, always Frigid Zone them first so it's safe for her to attack. She's basically just a Sagi. Instead of Kojenka, it's Frigid Zone. If you do nothing until Frigid Zone is up. Now, last but not least, we look at the supporters. In the main slot, we have Spica. Now, it's really interesting how good Spica actually synergizes with this build, because she will grant critical rate of melee attacks plus 14%. So anything melee that you're doing, like your Snow Leopard Sprint or any basics you throw, will get that extra 14% critical. But the real prize here is the increased critical damage of ranged attacks by 28%. That's going to just throw your Glacial Drop over the edge. And again, I'm really thinking this ultimate is ranged, so I'm just going to go ahead and speak as if it is. I might actually send in a support ticket and ask. But that 28% critical damage should also be applying to her ultimate as well, because it just hits absurdly hard. It's been hitting harder since I've added them's fighting ninjas, but I'll do more testing on my own or probably just ask them in a ticket. Wow, why did I hit that? Next we have the usual best in slot critical stuff. We're running the Kirara for the increased critical damage for 48% to all attacks. And then we have Kitty Mom for the increased critical rate of 16% of all attacks and increased critical damage of all attacks by 32%. Now these two together at S level 5 do equate to 80% critical damage. And when you cross-reference that 80% critical damage with the 80% from Glacial Drop and the 20% buff that Frigid Zone does give while up, you start to see how she hits the wacky numbers that she can hit on her Glacial Drop. So that's pretty much it. Like, I could go into substitutes, but it's just going to be your typical, like, usual substitutes. The build doesn't really work as well without these two. Like, she's kind of like in a state where she needs Kaoru and Kitty Mom for this build to really ever work. Because there's no good green supporters that are like, I don't want to say free to play because super real rares still come from gacha. But there's no green supporters that are like super rare that really like build into critical. And Akane is just another ultra rare. Like, she does deal with critical rate and she is a very powerful green. And so is Yuno, but Yuno really only affects basics with critical rate, so she doesn't work here. And Akane would work, but Kaoru and Kitty Mom just give way more critical than Akane would. But if you don't have either of these and you do have an Akane, she will fill the slot. And Spica is just a requirement because, again, the hybrid nature of her passive just really, really, like, walks up to Kirara, kisses her on the cheek, gives her a head pat, and says, hey, we work really good together, let's be friends. If you don't have a Spica, though, you can still fill your main slot with any good red, like even super rares. The Homura would be a great substitute because 30% all damage is never a bad idea. Renka's a friendly substitute, and Homura and Renka also don't have bad actives because they are full screen AoEs. But Renka would also be good because she does match the critical rate that an S level 4 Spica would give at S level 5. Outside of those, though, I guess you could use. Where is she? It's the waifu whose name I can never remember because I didn't have her forever. This waifu right here. You can use Ibuki because she would basically give the critical damage that a Spica would give, without giving the critical rate. So she's good for that as well. But her active isn't as good in the main slot because it does only hit one enemy. And outside of that, you could also go for a Faust because again, it is technically a ranged build, and this will just help your glacial drops crit more. But if you have like them's fighting ninjas, the critical Magatama, and at least like the super rare critical weapon, you may be able to forego the Faust because she'll probably be critting consistently anyway. And for substitutes, I think that's really it. Honorable mention, if you don't have the... No, it wouldn't work because she's red. Yeah, this is really all you can do. It's really like a cookie cutter build, and I'm sorry to share it. I try to share builds with you guys that are more free to play friendly, but people have asked, like, DPS Kirara, how do we DPS with her? This is how I prefer to do it. I'm sure someone else may have found something different, but yeah, I like hitting for 600k plus what's the cooldown? Every 11 seconds. So I'm going to stick with this just because it's basically the damage of an ultimate. And yeah, it's to a constricted area, but with Frigid Zone, our, updated Kojenka, it really doesn't matter. So that's going to be the video. Like, I hope it gives you guys some ideas of, what you could do with your Kirara. But this is what I'm going to do with mine for the time being. If you do have the Spica, you can go ahead and try her in tower content, because she did shred through the bonus stage relatively easily. I'll go ahead and, I think at the end of this video, I'll actually just put the tank build in the recommended, and then I'll put the video where I did run the bonus stage 3 in the recommended. It's a rather long video. It's like 40 minutes, but I guess I'll like drop a timestamp in the comments of that video for people who are interested in seeing this played on bonus stage 3. But outside of that, tower, I just can't say, man. Like, we don't have it resetting. Honestly, at this point, I think it may be a one-time thing anyway, and it's a moot point to even talk about it. But if for whatever reason tower does reset, I imagine she'll be fine because she'll just work like a Sagi, where she can pretty much, Kirara Kojenka them with Frigid Zone. But with the no sustain, it's still risky, and if you don't have a Spica, it would be really, really rough on you. If you want to try her and you have a Spica, I think she can do it. I really do. But she may go down here and there due to no sustain. Another option, if people want to just go full green, is they can just get rid of the Spica and run a Yuno. But remember, Yuno doesn't affect skills with her critical rate buff. But she does still put invincibility in that main slot, which is also good. And Snow Leopard Sprint would still have a damage increase with the all green. So either way would work if you want to like run all green Kirara. But just remember that the biggest damage would come from having the Spica due to her passive. And yeah, that'll end it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you found it helpful or informative. And I hope this helps people who would like to DPS with our adorable Oni waifu because, yeah, she can hit pretty hard. She just has no sustain. And if you're looking for sustain, well, you know where to find you know how to do the tank build by now. And yeah, she's really good at tanking as well due to her high defensive parameters. So with all that being said, you boys and girls have a great rest of your day. I wish you guys luck in all facets of the game. And with that, you all go ahead, you take care, and I'll catch you tomorrow with another Action Taimanin video. Bye-bye.